So I wanted to take a few minutes just to remind you of the categories of marketing. So many times chiropractors get, well, first of all, what I've learned is they never learn the basics of marketing. And that alone causes them to basically chase your tail. It gets you to go in every other direction. When there is rhyme or reason to why should do what you should do in marketing. And so this is the flow chart. Everything that you do to marketing, this is the flow chart that you should be doing. And I'll share with you the common mistake. I'll tell you the two common mistakes is number one, chiropractors generally don't know the flow chart of marketing. And then number two, they don't develop their skill with educational sales. And so when you don't develop your skill, you're not very good at something. And so when you're not very good at something, you don't get quick results. And so you quit. And the next thing you do is you're chasing something else again. That is real common. I mean, that scenario that I just gave is the absolute most common scenario that chiropractors do. And they constantly are chasing everything, looking for the next new patient, widget. Well, this is actually how the marketing system called the S-curve of economics, and what you should do first, second, and third, and why. And these are the systems that I stuck to. I didn't chase everything. This made sense to me. This is what works in the real world, and I stuck to it. So I didn't chase all the shiny objects. This is exactly how it works. So remember, first of all, when we look at your marketing, we're going, okay. Let me bring this page down just a little bit. Let me bring this. Okay, so at least we can see a page here. So it all starts when you pay attention to the guidelines. And remember, if you just follow these guidelines, it gives you the greatest potential for creating way more new business than you potentially can handle. And the two mistakes I typically see, as I said, is one, chiropractors don't understand this is the path. They don't know it. So that kind of makes you go in circles and chase everything. And then the second thing, they don't become good at it. And so when you don't have good results quickly, you quit. And next thing you know, you're chasing your tail again. And those are the two common reasons I see chiropractors just going around and round and round in circles and never have their marketing systems in place that are consistent, that regularly create way more new business than they physically can handle. I did not change my marketing systems. There were essentially 7 consistent marketing systems that I did, and I just repeated them. And we got good at them, and we created way more business than we physically can handle. I had 2 full-time associate doctors in my office. And then, of course, we opened 77 offices in 20 states using these systems. But this is right out of the S-curve of economics. This is exactly how and why people buy products and services. So you always have to, when you look at marketing, these are the guidelines that you want to follow. And then when somebody does mention anything about marketing, this or that, this is what the guidelines you should always put it up against. So here's the guidelines. First of all, this is the percentage that you can expect from marketing. So cold call advertising, you can only expect 1%. 1%. It doesn't work very well. Passive referrals only create 7%. And you know that because you go and buy products and services every day. You probably bought some products or services yesterday, and you were probably satisfied with the price, the quality, and the service. And you went about your business and you didn't tell and refer anybody. And that's what happens 93% of the time. So passive referrals are only responsible for 7%. And this is the other reason you cannot wait around for passive referrals. And the other reason, obviously, is there's only 8% of the population looking for chiropractors. So you only have 8% looking. That's a reason you within your confined geographic area, and it's divided by the chiropractors in that geographic area. Well, that alone will not create abundance. And then you only have 7% passive referrals. So if you're just dependent on the 8%, your share of the 8%, waiting for referrals, you're not going to have much of a practice. So leads will give you 15%. So your chances of getting business from leads is way better than a passive referral. Active referrals can go up to 55%. In other words, you create them. In other words, you know what to say and do to create referrals. And then that should actually say introductions, not leads. Introductions. Introductions, you'll get as much as 75% from introductions. Now, the reason that makes one form of marketing better than the other is trust and need. So if you go in the cold call category, there's no trust and there's no perceived need. That's why it's the worst marketing you can do. And by the way, that's what most chiropractors do. When I do a practice evaluation and I look at the marketing and all the where they're getting their new patients, overwhelmingly, it's from cold call advertising, which is the worst business, the most expensive business, and you can't buy yourself in the prosperity. So that's why those numbers are what they are. Leads are 15% because at least with a lead, we know there's a problem to some degree. There's either one or the other, trust or a problem. And it's usually, at least there's a problem to some degree. Active referrals is too. We know there's both. There's a problem and there's trust. And of course, the introductions are 75%. That's when we have trust and there's a problem. And a good example of that is when, we talk to our patients and they have a spouse or family member with back pain, neck pain, headaches, etc. I mean, that's the absolute easiest patient to get. We have high trust, high circle of influence, high trust, and we know somebody that has a gateway problem. That's the absolute easiest business you'll ever get. And most chiropractors never even ask. So, or they don't know what to do to get that business. And then remember, there's 3 different types of marketing you can apply to get it. So remember, that's why we want to spend our time in the introduction categories and the active referrals, and we want to stay away from cold calls and leads. And then having said that, remember when we talk about the marketing, we're going to pay a lot of attention to a target market. Because remember, if you do great marketing in the wrong target market, you'll significantly hurt the effectiveness of the marketing. So we pay attention to demographics. That's who buys. Geographics. That's a big one. Most chiropractors do not even know their geographic radius of draw, and they're constantly marketing outside of it, and that business isn't going to come to you. And then there's what's called the psychographics. That's why they buy. There's people that are more likely to buy chiropractic and less likely. And then there's what's called psychographic barriers. Those are subconscious reasons why people don't go in particular directions, whether it's a large body of water, industrial complexes, railroads, driving outside of away from an economic hub versus toward an economic hub. All of these are psychographic barriers that stop people. I say all the time, I said, I couldn't pull somebody 2 miles north of me, but I could pull patients left and right 9 miles south of me. Why? Because of psychographic barriers. I had a county line 2 miles north of me. They were driving away from an economic hub, and I had an interstate highway. I had 3 psychographic barriers. I mean, but 9 miles south of me, I had no psychographic barriers. So that's why I would routinely get patients 9 miles south of me. And then, of course, if you violate gateways, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. So you have to market the things that people buy, which is, chiropractic, it's back pain, neck pain, headaches, car injuries, things like that. And then the unique sales position is they'll pick one of 5 locations, whether it's trust. In chiropractic, it's trust always first. That's first in every industry. And then in chiropractic and brick and mortar professional buildings, it's location. That's after trust. That's the number one. That's 75% of the reason why somebody will pick a chiropractor. The third reason is cost. And then the fourth reason are service factors. You stay open later, you're open on Saturday, and that's only 3%. The very last reason that people will pick a chiropractor is quality. Your degree, what school you went to, blah, 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 certifications. Those are quality factors. Only 3% of the 8% of the population look for chiropractors will pick based on. That's why you never market service factors or quality. That's why. Because 3% of 8% is a real small number. And that's why you always market your location first, because that's 75% of the reason. So then it takes us to 3 marketing options. When we go into that target market, we have 3 options. We can use publicity, and it only affects trust, so it doesn't work as well. Advertising can affect money, time, and trust, so it can affect the obstacles of money, time, and trust. So it works better. That's why it works better than publicity. And then you have educational sales, which affects need, money, time, and trust. And that's why educational sales always works better than any form of marketing. And it gets the 92% of the population that have problems that are not seeking chiropractic care. That's the only form that does. But that takes knowledge and skill. So next is, so you go, okay, well, what should chiropractors be doing first? So this is what the first 5 marketing places chiropractors should market. Why? Because this is where the 8% of the population is looking. Number 1 is the patient video newsletter. You should be talking to your patients at least once a week. Video, because it's visual. It's emotional. And remember, that's the first place people look when they're looking for a chiropractor, is a trusted source. And your past patients, not just for reactivations, 2% of them are in automobile accidents. Remember, they have a circle of influence of 7. Well, 8% of those 7 are going to be the number 1 source for them to go to a chiropractor is through your past patients. That's the number 1 place to look, trust. After that, it's location. That's why the patient video newsletter is the very first marketing you should do. Number 2 is the insurance videos, because they'll Google their insurance company to see if you're one of the providers that accepts their insurance. That's why it's number 2. Number 3 is Google for business. That's based on location. That's why it's number 3. Number 4 is they'll Google their condition. That's why you need your condition videos. And then your sign, your office sign, because they'll pick a chiropractor. The 5th reason is because your sign. So we have a proactive sign. That's the 5 places that you always market first, because that's the order that new patients are looking for chiropractors. So if you do not have these fulfilled, you're missing out on those potential new patients, period. So the good and bad news is there's already a need and they're looking for chiropractors. The bad news is it's only 8%. You just want to get a few more than your neighbor. That's all. But this isn't going to create a tremendous, this alone will not create more business than you physically can handle, because it's only 8%. So that now you go to the marketing that creates tremendous business, and you combine trust and need with educational sales. These are the systems. Number 1, the very first marketing system, the proactive marketing system you should have in your office, is the spouse referral system, because it's too easy. There's high trust, and we're going to know by asking 1 or 2 questions if the spouse has back pain, neck pain, sciatic, arthritis, joint pain, old car injuries. It's too easy. That's a new patient just sitting there waiting. And then remember, we can use one of 3 types of marketing. We can use publicity, advertising, or educational sales. Of course, educational sales is where it's at, because of what I just referenced earlier. And then the Kids Health Day. That's the very second system you should have in place. Why? Because it's high circle of influence. And it's too easy to find out if any of the kids are having problems. And especially if you like kids, that's a great program. It's very easy to grow a practice, picking up some of your patients' kids. It's a very easy way to grow a practice. The third one is the reactivation system. Why? Well, they already know, like, and trust you. That's the third marketing system you should have in place. because they've already been to your office. They've already overcome so many obstacles. So now that obviously is, again, we could use publicity for that. We could use advertising, or we could use educational sales. And we already know educational sales is way more effective. But I could use any three, but I'm positioned the best. So that's the reactivation system. They have old injuries. They have circle of influence. 2% of them are in auto accidents every year. I'm amazed at how many chiropractors that have been in practice 10, 15, 20 years and have absolutely no marketing system, no reactivation system. I'm amazed. They have this huge database of high probability new patients, and they're not even marketing to them. And then the referral system, and that happens with after every re-exam. There's a referral system. Remember, only 7% of your patients are going to refer if they're satisfied with your price, quality, and service. You have to ask yourself, are you okay with 93% of the people not referring? Are you okay with that? Are you okay with 7%, such a low number? Well, you can create referrals if you actually know how. That's the proactive educational sales system again. And then there's the in-office monthly promotion. That's just a very easy way to pick up a few patients regularly. We just tie it to what's our, we in other words, we already focus on overcoming the common obstacles. So we'll already go to a trusted source. We'll stick with the gateways, and we'll use educational sales, and we'll pay attention to the 20%ers. That we've already overcome the majority of problems in marketing right there. That's how easy that is. And there's like no cost involved. This is no cost marketing. And then you have the new patient orientation. Every office should be doing a new patient orientation. It not only increases, new patient orientations do three things. Number one, they increase the doctor's conviction. I had all my associate doctors, they were required to give the new patient orientation because it increases your conviction immensely. Number two, it increases patient retention. It really drives home to the patients, how the three phases of healing works and how it all comes together. It really drives it home. Number three, it really increases the circle of influence referrals. That's what it does. I say all the time, I cannot give a new patient orientation to 10 people and not get several new patients out of it. You got to remember, out of 10 people, even if you didn't know them, 6 or 7 out of 10 of them will have arthritis, joint pain, old injuries, back pain, headaches periodically. They got something. You just have to know what the right thing to say. And that's a high trusted source. Again, you're saying the right thing in a high trusted source with people who have problems. And then we do what's called the in-office activation. That's, all these people that are coming through your office, your patients, family members, and friends that you're letting sit in the waiting room, they're all potential new patients. We know that they're on the S-curve somewhere. 8% of them are going to be looking for a chiropractor in the next year. We know out of the 92%, 25% of them don't have a chiropractic problem. And we know that 75% of the 92%, in other words, 68% of all the guests of your patients coming through your office have a potential problem, and there's a trusted source there. And so many chiropractors just let them come in the office, sit in the waiting room, and walk right out of the waiting room. And then they go spend $500 a month on Facebook ads for cold calls. And they just had the new patients walk out of their office because they didn't know what to say or do. So that's called the in-office activation. And then there's, of course, the VIP dinner. Remember, 20% of your business will give you 80% of your business. That's why you focus on the people who have already referred. They're the ones that are going to give you abundance with new patients. And of course, we just do the VIP dinner. We add the 20%ers and have them bring 2 of their family members or friends, high circle of influence, do an educational sales presentation, and we got a lot more new patients. We have all the characteristics, trust, need, everything. And then, of course, the personal injury attorney, educational sales marketing, which is phenomenal. Gets a tremendous amount of new patients. So these are the systems that I used routinely to open 77 offices in 20 states, seeing over 600,000 patient visits a year. Creates a lot of business when you know, and remember, I could apply publicity to any of these. It just wouldn't be as effective. I could apply advertising and it wouldn't be as effective. But when you apply educational sales combined with all these factors, it creates a tremendous amount of business. Which takes me to the third category that most chiropractors pay attention to, and it's the least thing you should do. And you shouldn't have to do it at all. It's called cold call advertising. This is what most chiropractors do because they don't know what I'm showing you right now. Matter of fact, not just chiropractors, small business owners. They don't know this. So what do? They go to the worst category of marketing there is, cold calls. No, there's no trust. You don't in the target market, you don't even know if they have a problem or not. And then you spend a lot of money. So you go to the worst market and you spend the most amount of money. But that's what chiropractors do. And you should not have to do it at all. Now, if you did do it, what should you do first, second, and third, and why? What is the very first cold call advertising you should do? Google pay-per-click. Why? Because they're already looking for a chiropractor if they Googled those words. In other words, you would do Google pay-per-click for the keyword chiropractor location. Now remember, 84% of the people that go to that page will pick a trusted source, not a pay-per-click ad. 16% will pick a pay-per-click ad. But what's the pros? There's already a need. They're already looking for a chiropractor. So that beats the heck out of marketing where you don't even know if they're looking for a chiropractor. Okay. So there's a need and they're looking for a chiropractor. That's why Google pay-per-click is first. Now, there's different degrees of effectiveness in this type of advertising. If it's just an ad, that's the worst kind. If it's an ad with a link to the front page of your website, that's not good. So the best type of marketing is when they click on that pay-per-click and it puts them into an opt-in box and they go through a 3 to 4 video series of educational sales with follow-up. That is the single best cold call marketing you can do. Google pay-per-click for your keywords, putting them into a 4-step video series, educational sales video series that establishes the need, solves the problem, and eliminates the obstacles. Anything less than that will significantly decrease the effectiveness of that marketing. Now, second marketing is Facebook pay-per-click. Well, do people go to Facebook to look for an optometrist or a lawyer? The answer is no. You go, well, why is it number 2? The only reason it's number 2, and this is the criteria, otherwise it's worthless, is if you combine the demographics, psychographics, and geographics. In other words, with Facebook, you have the ability to control way more of your target market than any other form of venue, including TV or radio. So it gives you the opportunity to really laser focus your target market, number 1. Number 2, again, if you just had an ad or you just put them to the home page of your website, that's the least effective marketing you can do in Facebook. The best is to put them through the 4 video series, educational sales series, which solves the problem and eliminates the obstacles with follow-up. That is the single best thing you can do in any form of cold call advertising, is put them through the 4-step educational sales video with follow-up. That's what takes low effective marketing, and makes it highly effective. That's what it does. Number 3 is your local subscription newspaper. And there's a few reasons for this, even though it's a digital world. Number 1, local. People pay a lot more attention to local news than national, regional, or international news. So if you have one of those little local newspapers, those are little diamond in the roughs. especially if you have subscribers. Now, it's important that you have subscribers. Subscribers, paid, subscriber means paid subscribers. The reason is you have a captive audience. And a lot of these little papers that come out once a week or, I'd say 2 weeks, they may have 500, 1,000, 2,000 subscribers. That's 2,000 people of a captive audience. Remember, 8% of those people are looking for a chiropractor every year. Well, take 8% of 2,000. That's a lot of people over a year. Okay, and of course, there's, better ways of doing marketing with all this stuff. Same thing, if I just had the ad in the local piece, it wouldn't be as effective. But if I could take them from that ad and drop them into a 4 educational video series that solved the problem, explained how we solved the problem, and overcame the obstacles, I just significantly increased the effectiveness of my local newspaper advertising. Number 4 is it's called discount direct mail. Discount direct mail, like Valpak, things like that. And the reason is direct mail can be expensive, very expensive. Matter of fact, it won't even typically pay for itself, or everybody would be doing it. But when you get the discount, it's bulked. In other words, there'll be like 20 businesses in a Valpak mailer. So you're sharing you're decreasing the cost, which increases the likelihood of making it cost effective. And you can designate it to your backyard, your geographic radius of draw. Number 5, radio and TV is only with multiple offices. You waste so much time and money with radio and TV because most of it is way outside of your geographic radius of draw. Every now and then, though, especially now because there's so many TV channels, etc., sometimes you can really get unbelievably great rates to where even though 80% of, say, TV is outside of your geographic radius of draw, so let's say only 10 or 15% is, but you could potentially draw enough from that 10 to 15% because to easily make it worthwhile, because the rates are so fantastic. When there was only 4 channels, and no cable, TV was unbelievably expensive. And now it's so segmented. There's 300 channels. Well, they need advertisers. And so you can really get into some of these programs. And I covered this separately, which ones to do. Again, most chiropractors don't like doing it. But the best thing you can do is a talk radio or talk TV, and use the educational sales formula where you're explaining how to solve their problems and overcome their obstacles. That's the best if you're going to use it. So, but it's better if you have multiple offices within that geographic radius of draw. So those are the 3 types of marketing systems that chiropractors should be doing. And what's the 2 main problems that I typically see? One, they don't know this flow chart that I just showed you and why some marketing is naturally better than the others. And so they're jumping around everywhere. What's the second thing that happens? And I see this often. Now, it didn't happen when I was training. It happens more often with consulting because I can't control you. Now, when I trained, I could actually take a client from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence. In other words, he would actually know how to do a new patient orientation, a referral system, a spouse referral system, a VIP dinner, a personal injury attorney market. In other words, I could put him through the stages to get him to own it, to know it, where he got results. And that alone stops him from just quitting and running after. Because most of the time when people don't do this, what do they seem to always run to? Cold call marketing. They run to the worst type of marketing right there. This is the highest effectiveness because of all the things we talked about, but it takes knowledge and skill. And most people never develop the skill before they quit. That's the problem. The good news is when they do develop the skill, it creates a tremendous amount of business, way more business than they physically can handle. And I've shown this over and over again every time I do these things. Even from the attorney presentations, you know, what we did last year, we did what, seven, I think it was seven attorney presentations to, it may have been 5, to 110 attorneys. And we had like 98% of them sign up for referrals. Same with the VIP dinner, you know, every time, obviously the message has to be very important. But that's why I say I can't talk to a group of 10 people and not get 4, 5, 6, or 7 new patients out of it. Because of the educational sales message is so unbelievably effective. It's when you know how to do it. When you don't know how to do it, it's like anything else. It doesn't work as well. And then everybody runs and thinks it's, you know, it's a machine. Chiropractors are good at buying machines and everything else that they think is going to get a business besides themselves. So anytime you think of a marketing system, it should always go through this flow chart. But the very first marketing systems here, this takes very little time, very little labor once it's up. Okay, it's not as effective. This creates a tremendous amount of business right there. You'll never need any other marketing if you know these systems with educational sales. You'll have to learn how to get associate doctors and train associate doctors to process the business. And then the cold call advertising, you should not have to do it all. If you did, this would be the order that you would do it and how you would do it. If you did, and you want to do as little of this as possible. It's the most expensive, least effective.